50 people already. Yay!
Oh,
Woohoo! Welcome, everybody.
killing.
Well, hello. Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey, how goes it?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
There it is.
Hi.
Take a look at the gallery view. There we go. Get on
Hi.
this thing. Hello. Are you all ready?
Yeah.
Today's
with
gonna
that-
be it's gonna be a very interesting day. I was a lot. I was supposed to take the day off yesterday, but I ended up going into the office and creating out an agenda. Usually I don't have like a specific agenda, but today I felt like deserved it. And it's gonna be special. Yes, and we're just signing it, it looks like. Someone is turning on their computer. So yeah, it's very interesting. How does everyone feel about the concept so far?
Small slick vessel built to counter the Aztec war committee.
Much better than I did before. Much
Our
better.
motto would be,
Yeah.
Cortez decided that a victory over a local tribe would
Whose audio is that? Someone has their music on?
on 1 August 1520. Cortez sent a message
Audrey Clark, it looks like.
giving them an opportunity to surrender.
I don't see that one.
In the bottom, Audrey.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. So we're just gonna let people file in. Yeah, so usually I don't have like an agenda, but today I just wanted to make sure that we hit every point. And it's goof. Oh yeah.
Dude, but I'll have to bend your ear sometime, Bo. I took your system and I applied it in a completely different way to work, and it worked. Totally.
Wow.
Just wait though, because today is gonna put a lot of things into place. It'll snap into place. I'm looking at Andy right now. I'm looking at Andy Henson. Everything's gonna snap into place, right? And it's almost like going to the chiropractor, and it's just like click, and it's like whoa. You know what it's like? It's a better example is this. It's that moment when the training wheels are off, and it's like, holy crap, I'm balancing on that bicycle. And I'm just gonna let people file in. Again, it's gonna be a little bit different today. If you do have your microphone on, just if you have background noise, thank you. Yeah, I'm just gonna let people file in for now. And let's give it another 5 minutes here. How is everyone feeling about this week's? Did everyone watch the videos, by the way, for this week, this past week? And
Yeah.
Even if you're not caught up, at least get to this point, because yeah, a lot of those concepts will just start becoming clearer.
I was going to come in a helmet.
You don't need a helmet. We've got arms to catch you. It's a trust fall. As people are filing in, so let's just start with this. There's good news and bad news. Or just in my life, there's good news and bad news. Do you want the good news first or the bad news first?
Bad news.
Let's do the bad news first. Okay.
Bad.
So, as people are filing in, I have a really good friend of mine, and he's just, his dad's in the hospital, and it's just sucks, because it's like that helpless feeling. So I just want to spend just 25 seconds, just a moment of silence, just send some good positive energy, and just send good positive energy into the world, whatever you believe in, but let's just spend 25 seconds here, just having a moment of silence, just for the things that we can't control, but, we still care, so it still kind of hurts. So let's just spend 25 seconds doing that.
Martinez just asked what's his name.
Or the first letter of his name?
Let's do The letter M. So it's just 25 seconds.
Of the gangs in Chicago. Don't nobody from them hoods run Chicago, bro. Cause Chicago not even a motherfucking place that you can run. The motherfuckers be like, oh, Block or 63rd, Lil Durk never run Chicago, bro. Don't nobody run Chicago, bro. This motherfucker can't nobody run this.
Let's do another 5 seconds here. Thank you, guys. God, I feel so serene. This is great. Okay, you can unmute yourselves now if you guys want to just, yeah. For the good news, do you guys want to hear the good news?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got an email from Sonke last night, and if you have been following up with my work, I know I stopped the last couple of days, but all the vulnerable stuff, if you've been keeping up with my work, he's going to be sending me a signed copy of his Korean translation of How to Take Smart Notes for my mom. So, and I want to just take 30 seconds, right? I'm just going to, let me preempt you what I want to do. I want everyone to unmute themselves, right? And I want to send a little 30-second clip of us just thanking Sonke. Right, and I'll send him that with the address, my address or whatever for the book. But it's like I just want him to know how much of an impact that he's making with this little book that he wrote in 2017. So I'm just gonna have everyone just unmute and let's just spend 25 seconds just giving an applause. So Dr. Sonke Ahrens, you know, this is the 4th iteration of the Rome Book Club, and you know we're reading through How to Take Smart Notes, and we just wanted to thank you for writing that book for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Keep going. I'm flipping through the pages.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay. All right. So today is going to be special.
Wow.
Let's just start with, I have to look at my agenda here. Okay, let's put it all together. That's really what I want to do today. I just want to put it all together, all right? And let me start with this. I need to get a temperature check. I need to know where everyone is at. And so what I'd like to do is, I'd like to ask just the whole group here, so unmute yourself. You can raise your hand. I can call on you, whatever you want to do. If you don't want to just speak up, you can just do whatever you like. But in your own words, what is a fleeting note?
Something you capture while you're reading that you can come back to later.
Bravo. What is a literature note?
It's when you've learned what the author is saying and have put it into your own experience.
What is a reference note?
Bibliography to a note, to a book, an article.
The source material.
Perfect.
Yeah, source.
Yeah. And then what is a permanent note?
What's your crystallized thought of all three of those put together? Your declaration.
Clarity of thought.
Perfect. Oh, you guys are rocking it today. You guys are very learned. What's a Vogelzettel?
The path to the other notes.
It's a sequence. It's a sequence, a threaded sequence of notes. Gives you the context and the direction that your thoughts are going.
And how deep.
An entry point, maybe.
And it also like clusters things together and shows you what you're interested in and
Hold
things you're
on.
not interested in.
Hold on, Alan. I haven't gone to clusters yet.
Oh, sorry.
What is a relevant note?
The linkage of the ideas.
Hmm.
The permanent note.
CK coming in. CK swooping in with the answer. Come on. What is an index note?
Map of your notes. A map
It's
into
a
your
list.
notes.
It's a list of entry points into your notes so that you can go to the appropriate topics to start reviewing your conversations to see where your new permanent note will fit in.
Okay, so Michael's leading. Michael's gonna lead RBC 5. I'm sorry. That was articulated beautifully. Isaiah, or Wesley, you're gonna say something?
It's the root of a tree.
Root of a tree. Perfect. So what's a cluster?
Alan.
Yes. So a cluster is all those individual things coming together to show you what you're interested in and what you're not necessarily interested in.
And then how? Perfect. And then how would everyone describe a critical mass?
60 to 80 notes? Permanent notes?
A critical mass of notes.
When you forget.
When the note's speaking back to you as a partner, as a conversation partner.
When the Zettelkasten becomes sentient.
It's singularity, man. It's the singularity.
It is the singularity.
The Zettelkasten becomes Skynet.
Exactly.
Oh my god! I thought of it like the tapes in the Matrix, and then you can remix the tapes.
I know Kung Fu,
Mixtape.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
What is the goal of a Zettelkasten?
Leverage the work that you do today to make it easier to write in the future.
And it's really to like offload your learning, right? So you don't have to remember everything in your brain.
To give
It's
you a
like
conversation
externalized brain.
partner.
Yeah, that was
Augmentation.
Augmentation.
Mentoring
And then
partner too.
Dad, thank you.
To produce
Martina, you were
work.
saying something? Mike? You
To
guys
give you
just have to jump in. Yeah,
insight.
keep going. Keep going. Give you insight. This is perfect.
To transfer your thinking to the future.
Perfect.
Help you identify gaps.
Perfect.
To give you someone that you can talk to who has exactly the same interests that you have.
I'm really
Nice, I
someone I
like
like to
that.
talk to.
I just wrote this. If we stop learning, we stop remembering.
Okay. Okay. Let's get this party started. Okay. So, who can explain what Euler's identity is?
Well, I'd better.
Why is this considered? I see you, Stefan. Yvette's here too, so I see Yvette and Andrea's here too. Why is Euler's equation the most beautiful theorem in mathematics?
That's simple.
Well, it takes three irrational numbers and puts them together into something that you can almost see and understand.
There's a complexity hidden behind simplicity.
Say that again?
Complexity hidden behind simplicity.
That is what I wanted to focus on. And there's massive amounts of complexity hidden behind this beautiful, simple equation, this simple identity. And
It can also describe the path we're doing visually.
Yes. You can describe the path that we're doing visually. It's a simple look at it, and yet incredibly, it comprises the 5 most important mathematical constants. And again, this is just, I don't know any of this, but I was watching a bunch of World Science Festival stuff as I was learning how to Zettelkasten, and for some reason, this is the stuff that got highlighted to me. And so I was relating what I know to what I don't know, and I was putting it all together. But I love how it brings together these 5 constants, and it also comprises of 3 most basic arithmetic operations. And so I just love that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some things. Let me go ahead and...
Do you want the image related to what we're doing? Do you want the image related to what we're doing?
How do you mean?
What it represents in terms of complex numbers, just a visual image. It's very simple.
Well, when you say it's very simple, Stefan,
Well,
want
just
to see
imagine we're going to draw a semicircle. So you begin on your right. Imagine you've got your right arm extended. We're going to go up to the summit, complete the semicircle by going down on your left. You've just made e to the I pi, and now add one. You come back to the center where you are now, and this is e to the I pi plus 1. So you've got the whole climb up to the summit, go down, and go back to the center.
You guys hear this? It's amazing.
So that makes sense. Pi, half a circle, right? Right. I sort of shows you your direction, whether you're in complex space or real space.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, let me go and share my screen again. I'm just gonna start with the current timestamp. This is my own personal database, right? And so I start everything with the current timestamp. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and open up captured books into the sidebar. And this is basically a captured permanent note that I have in my sidebar. I know you're gonna have questions, but can you just hold everything until the very end? Let's just follow along, just see the mechanics that are coming into place. So basically, I have this page which contains all of my captured book notes. I have another one for daily voice memos, and I have one for YouTube lectures. So basically what I do is I just drag this, and I bring it underneath that timestamp. And I can close this. Can everyone see this, by the way? Let me just zoom in a little bit more.
Yes.
So basically, I'm just going to go in and zoom into this block here, which is the timestamp. And then now I'm going to go ahead and reveal everything that's inside by expanding all. And so I have my reference note here, the source material with the command K linking to the exact point. This is the quote itself. And then this is my first pass of my fleeting notes. And you can tell I captured it because at the end of it, I either cuss or I say, whoa. So now what I'm going to do is I want to start processing this. So basically what I've done is I've done what you've been doing this whole time. You have that current timestamp in the daily notes page. And I'm just looking at my notes here. Bring over to the daily. This provides a level of context. Now, you have to remember, I was watching a documentary on Luhmann last night. And one of the problems that he had and what the archivists have is that there's no way to know when he wrote his note, because there's no day or timestamp. And so in a physical slip box, you miss out on these perks that technology offers us. So it's impossible for Luhmann to have that level of context. Someone's typing. Can I just mute someone? Who is that?
Oh, Matt.
Sorry, that was me.
Matt, I'm just gonna mute you, yeah? Boom. So basically, it provides that level of context, which was impossible for Luhmann. It's a 3x5 index card, super thin. Like, I was watching the documentary, and it was just like, they were so flimsy, because he needed so many of them. And so, physical limitations. So it's impossible for people that are gonna look back at your work to know when that idea was crystallized. So again, one of the beautiful things about Euler's identity is how simple everything is with just the timestamp. So within this one timestamp, you have so much information, and it's all linked back to this point. This is the top level block, but this is actually the most important. But do you see what I'm saying? And so let's just go ahead and start working here. I want to start the processing of this fleeting note, and I'm going to do it in real time because I need you all to see the information that I'm pulling out, because that's going to make sense when we start looking at the permanent notes, okay? So let's just, let's just keep all the questions until the very end, and let's just watch the process, and then it's basically I'm showing you my golf swing, you know? And once you see how I do my golf swing, you can go, okay, well, let me try that. You know, that's the whole idea. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to walk through the process of what I'm doing here. So, again, I have everything captured. I brought it over. Now I'm just going to go in and zoom into the block. If you click on any of the bullet points, you can zoom in. And what I like to do is I like to just bring everything back. What I'm doing is I'm holding shift and I'm hitting shift tab, and I'm bringing back all of these sort of ideas. So now they're all, I think this one was up. I think this was up here. What I'm doing is I'm just basically making them all top level parent blocks. And so what I do is, okay, so let me take a look at the, I'm gonna shift click this into the sidebar. So I've got my source material here on the sidebar. I'm gonna zoom back into the block here. And now I've got bullets here. So these are all my top level parent blocks. Now I'm starting the processing of the fleeting notes. Let me just read. The ship owners tried to integrate the container into their usual way of working without changing the infrastructure and their routines. Perfect. I know exactly what that means. Oh shit, this is everything that I'm doing. So I'm just gonna basically do this, okay? So if you do Control O, you'll zoom into the block. It's just another keyboard shortcut. All right. So I zoom into the block and now I just start typing. It's like, oh shit, this is everything that I'm doing. This reminds me of. Okay, just follow along. I know this part's going to be a little bit arduous, but you have to see how my information is coming to the surface. And this reminds me of the difficulty of... And so now I'm going to do... I've hit the limit of that idea, right? And so now I'm going to do Command Shift comma, and that's going to bring me up a block. Again, just another keyboard shortcut that I like to use to sort of traverse real quick. And so now I'm back at the fleeting notes block. So now I just go to the very next one. I have my source material here, but I haven't even had to use it because I have this to work with. And I'm just reading what I wrote. And is that better? Sorry, keeping it PG-13 here. And those old routines. There's no way for this to work. And I'm just thinking about what this reminds me of. It reminds me of... if you have background noise, if you can mute yourself, thank you. Again, I'm focused. And now here's the thing too. One of the beautiful things about this is if I get distracted, because this is life. Like I'll get a ding, I'll get this. If I get distracted, I know exactly where I am when I go back to my work. It's like, oh, okay, well, here's my source material. I know exactly where I am. The bullet point indicates that I'm 3 levels deep. Okay, let me keep going. The play circuitry. So now I'm gonna. You broke my state, so now I need to go back over here. I'm gonna read this again. How strong? I'm just questioning myself. Again, this is important because if I don't write this down, then I don't know how I came to these thoughts. And because it's sort of frictionless, and this isn't permanent, this is just my fleeting ideas. Is it better? Ooh. Idea. Ooh, that's awesome. Wow. Okay, so now I'm gonna Command Shift comma, go back up one more block. I mean, I could probably stop here and just do my fleeting notes, but I'm gonna keep going. I think there's a little bit more here. So this is that block here. Again, I know exactly where I am. So I go back into this one and I'm just gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna go Control O. I really do have a potty mouth. I'm sorry. Ooh. Ooh. Command Shift comma, I'm back out of there. Again, I dip in, I dip out. Give me certainty like death, right? Ooh, so let me just gonna jump in here. If I do Command Shift comma, oops. Let me do this again. Give me certainty like death, right? This is interesting. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. These are my thoughts. It's the same with... It's like I can convince them of every living problem. I think there's something here. Futile. Again, I'm just sort of abstracting here. Again, this takes anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes. Okay, so boom, I'm just going down. Again, I'm just going down. I feel like I've got a grasp on this, right? But I want to go down a little bit more. I want another aha. Ooh, I'm gonna go down this path. I can follow the breadcrumbs like that too. I'm sweating a little bit. Welcome into my brain, by the way. How vulnerable is this? What's the phrase, Matt Brockwell? Lead. It's not about protecting. It's about leading with vulnerability. So let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Come on, let's go.
Rock on. You're doing great, man.
That's interesting. Death is literally. I need you all to see what's going through my brain so you can know how to do it too. It's like an algorithm of thought. That's interesting because death is literally the only thing that is certain, yet we never even think about it. If anything, it's more to talk about it. And I'm looking back at my source material here. I just want to make sure that I'm on track. So I've got the first level abstraction here, and then I've got the source material here. And what does this remind me of? If you can mute yourself if you have background music going, please. Thank you. I never really know. Whoa. Whoa. Hold on. Let me break this down. So you can tell. Then it'll never stick. How much drug addicts and alcoholics that make it. But whoa. Whoa. Okay. I feel pretty good here. Let me just double check everything. I'm just looking down. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm ready to summarize here. So basically I go here and then I just look through all my notes and it's all very fresh right now, right? So I'm just gonna summarize this. Let me read a little bit. Forcing someone to do anything beyond their own volition is like what happens when you force feed a new way of living. I'm just reading through my notes. Oh, I got it. This is good, but I'm missing like that one last piece. Forcing someone to do anything beyond their own volition is like what happens when you force feed a new way of living that happens when you judge someone's behavior. The solution may be Perfect. So now I've got my fleeting note summary there. So I'm going to Command Shift comma back. And so now I've got the fleeting notes and I've got all this information, right? And so let me just double check I'm getting anything here. It forces us to think clearly. I mean, it's also a decisionless process here. Like, I don't have to decide what needs to happen next. I know exactly what needs to happen because the simple lightweight structure guides me along. And so the less decisions that I need to make, then the less friction that I involve myself. I mean, you can think of all the different ways that people have taught you how to take notes, but you still have to make decisions throughout that process. With this way, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm thinking about my thinking. And so now I'm just going to go into literature notes. I'm just going to do some abstractions on this. And so now when I'm coming to this, right, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, well, I get what the author is saying because I have so much more underneath me. There's so much more fuel. There's so much more information. So now I'm going to look at this. And so I could even close this out because I have my summary here. Oh, this is me thinking, by the way. I mean, I'm thinking about fleeting note ideas here too, but it's like, okay, well, that's a different idea. Let me just stick with this. Again, it's sort of like, it's like when you're bowling and you have those little bumpers. It's like my mind wants to go off and over here. I want to keep going in fleeting note ideas, but it's like, no, I captured the idea. Let me stay within the lane right here because right now I'm just doing literature notes. So let me see if I can abstract this out a little bit more. Can you unmute, please? Or can you mute, please? The question is, why would one think that a new way will slot right into the old way without a structural change that will likely impact? Who is that? Thank you. Basically, what urges people to change without changing? Because it's easy. It's difficult. The difficulty in change happens when the foundation in which routine and structure has been solidified. The difficulty in change happens when the foundation in which routine and structure has been solidified is faced to be dissolved, maybe? I'm cool with that. The difficulty in change happens when the foundation in which routine and structure has been solidified is faced to be dissolved. No. That's not it. Let me say it again. How well I understand it is how well I can reword what the author is saying in my own words, integrating all of the information from the fleeting notes and the literature notes. And so this is me, I'm thinking this out. I want to get this right. The difficulty in change happens when the foundation in which routine and structure has been solidified does not the difficulty in change happens when the foundation in which routine and structure has been solidified does not go. The difficulty in change happens when the foundation in which routine and structure has been solidified does not go underneath the habitualized patterns. I'm cool with that. And so now, okay, let me just check in with everyone here. Hi.
Welcome back.
Yes. Yes. Bombs could be going off.
They are in the chat.
Yeah. Writing is thinking. Okay, so let's just check in here real quick. How is everyone? Okay, we haven't put anything together yet. This is all the stuff that you already know how to do. I've seen your work. You've already done all this. I was just doing it, presenting it to like get you in my brain as we move forward here.
It was an amazing demonstration of how thinking happens, slowed down and able to be observed.
Yeah, it was really, really amazing to watch, really inspiring. And it was nice to have that visual representation now that I can kind of follow myself.
Okay. You guys ready to get your minds blown? Oh, please, Colby.
Just saying, I personally prefer this approach when I see the rough thinking occurring instead of the polished end result, because I can kind of see how the connections are actually happening in the moment as opposed to this is the final view.
Can I ask you a question for the whole group? Or please, Alan. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I really liked how you kind of had this subconscious filter of what was pulling you out of the moment. When you heard something, when there was noise, you're like, you know what, somebody, can you please stop doing this because I'm in the moment? And you mitigated that so you could keep going. Excellent.
Yeah, I was thinking that it's like when you wrote the literature note, you had to experience it. It was experiential, and that experiential was happening. You did so much of it in the fleeting notes. It was really cool to connect those two experiences.
Can I ask a question to the group now? Do you now that you've sort of have a mirror looking back at you, because I've seen your work, everyone that's caught up, everyone that's been doing like day 10 or day 12, I think, in the fleeting notes, or day 19 as well. I've seen your work. So does everyone now see what they're doing?
Yes.
With the mirror pointed back at them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. So now, sorry, I'm sweating. Okay, so let me share my screen again. We're going to continue. Everyone can see. This is perfect. Now I'm going to go in here. Okay. Decisionless process. That's what we want. We don't want to have to make a decision on where anything goes. We don't want to decide as we're thinking. It's like it breaks your state. It's almost like, oh shit, now I got to focus on this. Oh shit, I got to focus on this. But it's like, because I don't have to make a decision, I know exactly where everything is. This means I was talking to Andy Naricott. He sent me a DM after a couple of months, and he was like, 26. I was like, dude, where you been at? And he was like, I was busy. But it was like, it felt like riding a bike though, huh? He was like, yes, I know exactly how to do it. And that's how I know that this works, is because it's the simplicity. And so now, this is what I want to do, okay? I'm going to go in and close this, okay? I'm going to close out in the sidebar. I'm just going to zoom out for a second, just so, okay. You can't really see much here, so let me zoom in just a little bit more. This is going to be too much. Let's do large. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I just want to make sure everyone can see, right? Everyone can see that, correct? Pretty clearly. You don't have to see all the words right now because I want to show you a little bit of the way to do it. And so now we're gonna have to open the permanent notes in the sidebar, because where does our Zettelkasten live? It lives in our permanent notes page, right? And so if you look at this simple structure, right? All of the information that I have, so if I want to shift click on the reference note, it's right there in the sidebar, right? I have my literature notes here. I have my fleeting notes here. Closed if I don't need it, gives me scope. But then now, the very next step is I need to open up the permanent notes page, and this is the reason that the permanent notes is right above the 3 tripods, because all I need to do is hold shift, and this has every permanent note that I've ever written. This is my Zettelkasten. It's frictionless. And then, let me go ahead and close this down. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 9 top level parent blocks. And then I'm just gonna go and expand everything. And okay, cool. And so now the information is gonna be fresh. And if you did the processing right, which you saw, you know, you're not gonna question what you're thinking about because you literally spent time like critically thinking about your thinking. It's so meta. And so now what we're gonna do is what people usually call spaced repetition. But you have to remember that everyone's sitting down now? Yes, I do recommend you sitting down. Everyone thinks that, you know, you have to remember that when you have your Zettelkasten, these are going to be all of your notes in your own words. And you have that experience of creating a new permanent note. And so when I look through this, all of my permanent notes here in the sidebar, what I'm actually doing is I'm looking at all of my experiences that I've had. And with this information, right? Just think about this, okay? With this information that I just did, and I've crystallized some of my thoughts, but now with this context, I'm approaching every other note that I've ever written with this new information, and I'm relating it, I'm seeing where it relates. So it's a forced spaced repetition with all of the notes that I've ever written. And so what I do now is, let me actually show you this too. Sorry, guys. And then I'm just going to do Control C, Control M. So when you first learn something, it's right there. It's at 100%. But every time you review it over time in different contexts, the information that I bring up from the fleeting and literature notes is different. And so I have this new contextual idea, but now I'm looking at every other note that I've ever written. And I'm going, does it fit there? No. 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 Does it fit there? Yeah, it kind of does. And so I'm basically reviewing everything that I've ever written. And it's inherent in the system. And so now I'm going to go here and I'm just going to go, okay, so I have this information and I go, you know, let's collapse everything. And I'm just going to go, where would this kind of fit? It's kind of talking about structure. It's kind of talking about patterns. I think it's really in regards to Zettelkasten maybe. I'm just going to open everything actually. And so now I'm just going to go through my notes here real quick. And I'll explain how this looks in a second, but let me find the perfect position first. Oh, this is great because this could actually fit underneath like overall objective. Overall objective is an acting term. It's just basically giving you the whole arc of the character. And so, I mean, this is talking about simplicity and paramount in Sonke's book, but I'm able to relate it to something with, because what it's really talking about is this idea of you can't really force anyone to do anything. So it's almost like overall objective, motivation, and then I think it's almost like overall objective, motivation, and then maybe lack of motivation or self-motivation maybe. Let me see where else it could fit. Oh, scene objective, pursuit. Maybe like the progress, the incentive. I think it can even fit in there. Yeah, so I'm just going to fit it here. And so now what I'm going to do is this. Hold on, I got to do this. Control C, Control M. The invention of the hashtag. The hashtag has only been around since 2007 when Mr. Messina tweeted on Pocket Tweets. That's what they called it. They used to call it. How do you feel about using the pound sign for groups, as in # hashtag barcamp? The invention of the hashtag is a new invention, 2007. So what is a hashtag? In Rome, it's a page, right? A hashtag is going to lead you to a page, but it's also a tag. And so how we look at something, like how we see something, makes us interact with it differently. You know, for instance, if you see a pit bull, right, and you grew up with pit bulls, you're going to go over there and pet it, right? Because that's your information of how you organize a pit bull. But if you grew up without pit bulls and you grew up with someone that got attacked by a pit bull, then your information of what you see a pit bull is stay away. And so when I look at a hashtag, what do you think about when you see a hashtag? You immediately think of, oh, this is a way to like categorize or organize something. So it's very interesting to think about how we interpret what a hashtag does. So in a Zettelkasten, I need to talk about this real quick because this is important. We're going to talk about the index. So we talked about the index as entry points, correct? And I'm just going to say it all. The index, I kept on saying the granularity of the index, it used to show us where the branches were. I'm going to share my screen again. And there really is no easy way around this. I mean, I just have to go into it and explain to you. So traditionally, let me just go to my permanent notes page real quick. I'm going to close this. And so now, traditionally, this branching sequence was not visible in the physical slip box, correct? Right. And because it's not visible, we would have these index cards that would show us, hey, this position is overall objective. Way down in the system, you have vulnerability down here. Because you cannot literally see that card because they're physical slip cards, you would have to write index. It goes over here. Like 20 cards deep, you have vulnerability. In Rome and the granularity happening at the block, we've changed the index from showing you what the branches are to showing you what the block is. And so it's this idea of when I think about a thumbnail, can everyone see this? Mm-hmm. This is a thumbnail, correct? Yes. And what is a thumbnail? A thumbnail basically shows you that if you click on it, it's the Mona Lisa, right? But it's still a one-to-one relationship, isn't it? It's just showing you at a glance what's inside of. It shows you at a glance what the information is without having to be bombarded with information. And so when I click on this, if I need to go into it, I can easily see all of the details of the thumbnail. When I don't, I can quickly scan through my notes without having, I can see that, that's a Mona Lisa. I can see that, that's this. I can see that, that's that. And so when I think about the index transferring from the branch, now what I'm saying is the index is giving you a one-to-one relationship of the permanent note. So this is the permanent note, and then this is the index baked in to the block. So in the block, you have two pieces of information. So basically, motivation is a thumbnail of abstracting the expected and unexpected into what's desired and undesired creates the yearning of motivation that draws the attention in. That's the big picture of the Mona Lisa. Hashtag motivation is the thumbnail for that high resolution picture. Just, I know it's kind of, I have to give you this information and it will make sense. I promise you it will. Let me just go here. Sorry. I'm reading through my notes, making sure I hit everything. Oh my goodness. Okay. Just, this is, don't hold your questions, okay? So an index, let me just recap here. Jeez, this is a lot. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Okay, hold on. The index, to reiterate, or the hashtag, in a Zettelkasten, The index gives us entry into the Zettelkasten. It gives us a doorway. It's the headlights, like I was talking about in the videos. But it's also a way to organize things. But it's also a way to Vogelzettel, the nested sequence. It shows us the thematic connections in the nested sequence, eliminating the need for 1AB, 1AC. Because the thematic connection will show us that. So it gives us a way to organize things. It gives us a way to Vogelzettel. It's also a page. It's also a visual delineation. It's also a way to stumble upon this later. And it's only been around since 2007. So let me walk you through it. And I think it'll make a little bit more sense. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to shift click permanent notes. Again, I know exactly where I am, right? And I'm going to go, okay, I think it fits here. And you have the little CSS bullet points here to show you where this is located. It's scene objective, pursuit, progress, incentive. And I'm going to look back at my notes here. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to make my permanent note into my Zettelkasten. But this is what I'm going to do. If there's a one-to-one relationship between the thumbnail to the high resolution picture, that means you can assume that because there's a one-to-one relationship, one is low resolution thumbnail, the other is a high resolution 20 megapixel photograph. Because there's a relationship here, a one-to-one relationship, when I look back at the thematic connection, as long as there's a thematic connection to the thumbnails, then it automatically instantiates the thematic connection with the high resolution photographs. So what I'm going to do is this. I don't need to read all of this. I don't need to read all of this. I don't need to read all of this. It's there if I need it. But I can just look at the low resolution thumbnails and I go scene objective, pursuit, progress, incentive, obstacles. Does that make sense, by the way? Let's keep going. What does one do if something emerges that fits the thumbnail better than the high resolution picture? What does one do? I don't, just hold your questions to the very end. Because yeah, a lot of those questions are like little nuanced questions that'll snap into place once you get the whole picture. So basically you can follow this though, correct? Scene objective, pursuit. Scene objective is in the scene, what's this character's objective, right? Pursuit, so it's the pursuit of that character's objective, and then it's the progress of that pursuit of that character's objective. This is the incentive of the progress of the pursuit of that person's objective, and now this is the obstacles that get in the way of the incentive of the progress of the pursuit of the scene objective. Does that make sense? It can literally fit anywhere though. This note could literally fit up here. Overall objective, motivation, destiny, or overall objective motivation. I could literally put it here. And it would be a completely different tag though. It would be a completely different index. And because it doesn't matter what the note is saying, it's how you connect all the notes, as long as there's a thematic connection, right? So I can go here, I go overall objective, motivation. I think this is gonna be motivation, and then this is gonna be deterrent. And it would be a completely different high resolution permanent note. It's a different crystallized thought, but think about this, okay? What you're doing is you're in response to the note above it, you are crystallizing your thought that you've broken down in the fleeting notes, that you've broken down in the literature notes, and now you're talking to your Zettelkasten and saying, here's motivation, here's the whole permanent note. This is my response to motivation, the whole permanent note. Or I go down here and I go obstacles and I go, okay, scene objective, pursuit, progress, incentive. I don't even need to read this. I see the thumbnails and it's a frictionless way of going, okay, so obviously there's a one-to-one relationship. I'm going to look back at my notes here. Let me go ahead and close this down. Oh, just wait, just wait, just wait. Okay, so let me just read. Let me think a little bit. Okay. Obstacles. The obstacles that get in the way of the incentive, progress, pursuit, scene objective. The biggest difficulty when creating a lasting change is when the foundational when the foundational structures get in the way of the new idea. That's perfect. Is this note the all-powerful note to save all notes and make sure that I can trust in my Zettelkasten? No, it's just a note, but it's connected. One doesn't matter, but if you got 100 of these that are all interconnected, then you got a story to tell. Then you've got an argument to have. So basically what I do is this. I'm sweating. So I'm writing in response to the note above it. So it's the incentive obstacles, right? The obstacles to the incentive. And so now I highlight the text and I do double open bracket. I've made a page, right? Again, this is not, by the way, this is not a linear argument. So you don't do linear arguments in the Zettelkasten. The linear arguments happen when you create another page, and as you're making this, you go, you know what, this is a great argument. Then you go to the arguments page and just type in, bring over this, link this to get to that page, and then you can create your linear argument. The Zettelkasten is the thematic connections of all your notes interconnected that you can traverse. Let's keep going. Connect the permanent notes page, which is so now I have my new permanent note here, but now I'm going to go back to the daily notes page and I'm just going to do this. Now I've linked the daily notes page with the permanent notes page, and then I'm going to bring over the index, which is hashtag obstacles. I'm going to add that to the top here. You'll notice that I didn't do hashtag here. The only reason is because if I do hashtag, it gets rid of the CSS. You see how it gets rid of the CSS? So again, pages are, tags are pages. They're if you click on the hashtag obstacles, it'll take you to the page obstacles. And so now this permanent note is linked to my daily notes page. Okay, hold on. So now, connect the permanent notes page, which is Zettelcast. Now I want to show you the next picture. I know you have lots of questions, but we're almost there. This is called GPS. This is the triangulation. I think this is, that's why it doesn't matter where you put it, Russell. Yes. This is what I think. I truly think triangulation is one of mankind's best inventions. Because if I know where I am in this world, then I know what to aim at. I know where to go. It's just, it's metaphysically to me, it's where that triangulation is profound. Let's take a look at what we just did here. We're not done, but I just want to show you something, okay? We've made a page on the daily notes page. We made a page on the Zettelkasten itself, correct? The triangulation is when I click into this page, you have 3 locations where this happens now. The GPS is going to be the page itself, the daily notes page, and the exact location in the permanent notes. And so if the goal of the Zettelkasten is to get lost in your notes, you have a triangulation to always tell you where you are. But wait, there's more, folks. Okay. You've connected the indexes, right? Now I'm going to go back to the daily notes page. And now, you know, I was on an intellect. So yeah, I know. All I see is fuck. Yes. We're not done yet, though. That's not even the best part. Again, I'm not smart enough to think about all this, by the way. This is just, I stumbled upon it. Just the first, I was a 49er. I just happened to be the first one to stumble upon it, right? And so I was at an intellect salon, right? And the salons are basically, you get a group of people and it's like a big Zoom call and everyone just has this open discussion, right? And then basically I had this idea. I was like, God, you know, I remember writing this permanent note, but I forget what it was. But we were talking about like, I was talking about this idea of like profound thoughts are usually pessimistic. So I just went into my personal Google, which I'll call my Rome graph with my Zettelkasten in it. And I just typed in pessimistic. And I go, oh, look at this. I know exactly that if it's in bold that it's a page, right? And I go, okay, well, this means it's a permanent note. And obviously because it's very long. So I click on this and I go, holy shit. Not only do I have all of the information, basically I'm on a Zoom call with them and I'm just going, Yeah, you know what? I was listening to this lecture and he was talking about profound thoughts are pretty damn pessimistic, but that's because, you know, da 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 da. And I was just like, wow, I just Googled what I needed to do. And then I can't show you that yet. And then what happens, you know, I want to talk about the index one more time, right? So you know how I came to this idea of obstacles, right? But the thing is, obstacles, when I think about the word obstacles, because how simple this is, these keyword indexes are not meant to be these broad, like 5 different topics. No, it's a thumbnail of what the permanent note is. So what happens if I click on this obstacles page? Look at that. It shows me every time I've used the word obstacles, but it also shows me the permanent note. It also shows me the actual permanent note itself with all of the work that I've done, right? And so what happens if I go in here and I go motivation, right? And this is a permanent note. I have 2 different permanent notes in my Zettelkasten that uses the same index motivation. But now what I've done is now I've connected two different branches of thought, completely different branches of thought. One is on story, the other one's on overall objective. The one note before it is evil, the other note before it is motivation. It multiplies the power of each of your notes because we're using the technology. Nikki's saying, whoa, yes. And so now, but we're not done yet. So now I'm back to my daily notes page here, right? And what I'm doing now is this looks really good. And this is where a lot of people stop. And people are like, yes, I put so much effort into this permanent note. But the permanent note isn't the top level parent block. The relevant note is, correct? And so what I'm going to do now is spaced repetition. I have a crystallized thought. I have an index. And because I know that this permanent note, it has a one-to-one relationship to this permanent note, all I do is I look at every single note. I'll start from the bottom, right? I'm just gonna start from the very bottom. I'm just gonna go obstacles, journey, right? Is there a thematic connection between obstacles and journey? Of course. I'm gonna hold Option Alt on this bullet point. I'm gonna drag this underneath. Let's keep going. What am I doing? I'm looking through every single one of my notes, right? And I'm going, okay, obstacles, dichotomy. There's always a dichotomy. Any thematic connection that I want, relevant, sequence, position, nesting, obstacles. Let's do bottom-up structure obstacles. Let's bring that over. All I'm doing is holding Option, by the way. And you'll notice that this is the power of the blocks, by the way. I have 2 pieces of information. I have this, which is the permanent note, and then I have this, which is the index. But when I bring it over, what am I bringing over? It's 1 piece of information for the 2 pieces of information on the block. You can't do this with you can't do this with a markdown file editor. Okay? You can't do this with Evernote. It has to have the granularity at the block. You have to be able to place two multiple pieces of information on 1 block and be able to reference that. But you'll understand this in a second. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going through every single one of my notes, and if it has any relationship to obstacles, then I'm going to drag it over. And because I'm not limited to a 3x5 index card, I can write multiple relevant notes. And again, if relevant notes is the key to a Zettelkasten, it exponentially makes the power of what you can do with the Zettelkasten so much more. And let's just do the vision of obstacles. No, analog solutions, physical limitations. Yeah, the obstacles have physical limitations. It doesn't even matter where you put it. And basically, I'm just going through all my notes. And again, I don't even need to read the permanent note. I'm just looking at the index because I know that there's a relationship between this and this. Obstacles, avoidance of obstacles, right? Oops, sorry. Oops, what am I doing? Sorry. Avoidance of obstacles. So I'm going to hold Option, bring it over. And you're going to notice as well, look at this. Relationships in the nesting sequence matter, right? And so basically, if I close this, what are the children blocks? What are the children blocks of relevant notes? All of the permanent notes. The new permanent note itself, as well as every other permanent, these are all permanent notes, correct? And they're all siblings of this permanent note. That shows you the thing, that shows you the relationship of the nesting, by the way. This is going to be important. He pushed the copy of the block, so it's bidirectional. Yes, exactly. So again, what I'm doing is once I've created the permanent note, I add the index. Now I literally spend about 5 minutes looking through every one of my notes that I've ever written, and I connect anything I want. Like some of them have like 20. I have 20 like relevant notes. It doesn't matter because it all collapses. Like if I don't want to take a look at it, all I see is that. If I want to see it, I can see every note. Right? So let me just keep adding stuff. Obstacles of emotional connection. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. There's no rules to this. This is your Zettelkasten. Let's do obstacles of humanity. I love that, right? This is basically, if you watch Xiaomi's video, he's like, how would I want to stumble upon this later? Yeah, but that presupposes that I am going to categorize this. No, what I'm stumbling upon later is not a keyword hashtag. What I'm stumbling upon is actually the permanent note, if that makes sense. And so basically, I'm just going to keep bringing over, okay, obstacles of the unknown unknowns. Let's just bring that over. And then that's good. I mean, again, I'm doing this and again, I just go through all my notes, spaced repetition of all of that. And again, okay, let me stop there for a second. Hi. How's everyone doing? I haven't paid any attention to the Slack. Can I just get a little feedback? I just want to make sure.
I think you're blowing some minds, Bo.
Blowing my mind.
Whoa. Jeez.
Why? Why? Articulate it. What is it?
Well, I feel like I've been operating at the minor leagues, right? You think you're good in the minor leagues, and then you go up to the pros and you see how fast the game really moves, right? College versus pros. So it's going to take a little while to get my head around that.
Great.
What I found interesting is normally I've been boxed into one category. You think about learning, you think about philosophy, you think about IT, whatever, but you never mesh them together. And this makes the brain explode a bit. Somehow I have an idea about IT, then I have another idea over in philosophy, and I could bring them together, and that's never been easy before.
Isn't that what genius is? That's what genius is when you can put disparate branches of thought together. That's what Einstein did.
I think of it as a system for remembering, and the remembering is causing the learning, and that's what I'm actually been wrestling with this all morning. But it's kind of I love what you said about Xiaomi and that reference, because I tried to learn that method and it didn't work. Now this
I did too. I did too.
And if I remember something, the space repetition's about learning, but it's almost like it's continuous. It's not like I'm waiting, a day. I'm just in the flow and I'm remembering and remembering and remembering. So it's almost like space repetition with the time slice being continuous.
Yes.
It's better than space repetition because, like, if you use Anki or any sort of space repetition, it's based on one thing. I'm reviewing a Japanese word. I'm reviewing a Cisco configuration. That's all it's testing your knowledge on. But with this version of space repetition, it's not only testing my knowledge of this, but I'm seeing how all these other things interconnect with each other, which makes it way more powerful.
Jonathan Hung says, I don't understand why there are whole statements still. I understand topics and words or phrases, but the sentences as a unit of meaning feels very chunked. I'm not sure what that means.
Chunked is a good thing, I think, because when you're stumbling or you're going back to your Zettelkasten and you're looking at where it all fits, it's just it's like a little seed, and you don't need to see all the rest of it. You can just take that small piece, and when you stumble on it, you then open it up and you see just it contains everything else.
I think I know what it is because I haven't showed you the next part. Can I show you the next part?
Shoot.
Okay.
Please.
Sit down first.
Wait, there's more?
This one I definitely recommend sitting down for. Okay. I've really been thinking about this, and I want to tell you all now that I had a thought. I was talking to Matt McKinley and Matt Brockwell, and I just had this thought that the reason that this Rome Book Club, the How to Take Smart Notes, has to remain free is because the transformations that happened are non-transactional. And if it's non-transactional, that means it's unconditional love. And so I just want you to remember that, because we're going to get into the best part. Because let me share my screen. Holy shit. I would say sit down. This is awesome. This is my favorite part. Okay, can everyone see? Okay, excellent. Let me zoom in a little bit. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Actually, I don't want to zoom in too much. You guys can see. Okay. Let me just let Omar in. Okay. So now, the point of a Zettelkasten is not to just write notes. The point of a Zettelkasten is to traverse. It's for insight, right? So what I'm going to do is, this looks wonky for some reason. Let me go to medium. Just go to here, boom. Just zoom in a little bit. Okay, the point of a Zettelkasten is to traverse. The point of the Zettelkasten is to be reminded of the notes. It's to offload our thinking. It's so we can come back to this communication partner that can surprise us. And so I can easily do that by following the index, right? I can collapse everything. I can follow this. I can follow this structure here, right? I know that where this leads. So let me just go down. Say I go to, let's go to one that you guys would know. Let's do Zettelkasten, right? And I go Zettelkasten phases. That's one branch. Zettelkasten dialogue. That's another branch. Zettelkasten dialogue autonomous. That's another branch, right? And again, hold on, let me just see something. And basically, if I click on any of these permanent notes, right, it'll take me to the exact location on the daily notes page. So say my dog died on October 14th. That might have skewed my thinking, right? But all my information is right there. So I can find out what I was thinking. And these little CSS things, by the way, I mean, it's meant to just show you exactly where the information is. But it also shows you the location in the actual Zettelkasten. So I can traverse like that. That's one way of traversing, through the permanent notes. And I can follow the index as well. So if I go to Zettelkasten, I can follow, oh, that's probably not a good one because I have a lot of them in there. Let's go to phases. I can follow the indexes as well. So I can follow the permanent notes to traverse. I can follow the indexes to traverse, right? And the CSS sprinkles just really help out here. The clustering by the branches, I'm just going over some of the information. I just want to make sure that I touch every point here. Let me see. Clustering. Now, I hope everyone can see that, like, because how things are clustered, right? You can see that, you know, performance, like artificial intelligence, I don't have anything underneath it. That shows you that I was interested for a moment, but I haven't really added anything to it. But where do my interests live? You can instantly tell that it's definitely overall objective, right? It goes multiple levels deep. It's definitely scene objective. This is all acting stuff, by the way. Like how to write a script, like story structure, right? Obviously, story is huge. Look how many blocks I have for story. It shows you where my interests lie, right? It also shows my lack of knowledge. Like obviously, inner objects is very shallow. And it also shows my vast knowledge on the things that I am interested in. So this is, you know, when you think about all the time that we're doing to like write these notes, it takes a lot of time. But we get our time back when we see what we're interested in and when we see what we're not interested in. And when we can see that if I wanted to have an clearer argument on artificial intelligence, then obviously I would want to read more about it. Right? And, okay. Sit down, ladies and gentlemen, because now we're going to have some fun. This is impossible in a physical Zettelkasten. Okay? It's called inline block references. You can't do this in any other note-taking app. So basically what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to click on this. These are all my inline link references. So basically this is every time that wholeness, the permanent wholeness, when making the decision to aim at a specific target, the importance of coming from a place of wholeness is paramount. So basically with this, it shows me every time, every note that's connected to this. You'll notice the CSS. You'll notice the CSS is going to be, and again, all I'm doing is relating the indexes to the indexes because guess what? It's a thumbnail. If thumbnails are connected, it automatically means that the high resolution pictures are connected. So basically I go wholeness, unpredictability. wholeness, death by wholeness. That's interesting. Death, wholeness by solution, wholeness attention, wholeness hierarchy, wholeness reticular activating system. I want to go to death by, or let's go to, no, wholeness embodiment. So this kind of looks like a button, doesn't it? What happens when I click on it? That's interesting, isn't it? It literally has all of my notes with one click. Let me do this again. Relationships. Let's go to connectedness. With one click, I have everything that I need. I have my permanent note. I have my reference note with all my material underneath. Screenshot. I have my literature note with all my abstractions. And I have my fleeting note with all my fleeting note abstractions. Let me do that again. So basically when I want to traverse, with one click, I could go open this up and it shows me every relevant note of this relevant note. It also shows me highlighted. This is automatic highlighted, by the way. It shows me the actual permanent note itself. It shows me the source material. It shows me all of the work that I did. Right? And this goes for any single one of them. So when I want to see, and basically I'm on, what am I on? I'm on relationships, right? And I'm going through all of the related notes to relationships and I'm looking at all of the different work that I've done. Nothing has gone to waste. And now I can find insight because I can see how I came to my thoughts. Okay. Remember I was talking about clustering? In a physical Zettelkasten, it's impossible to have the relevant note clusterings. But you'll notice these little numbers off to the side. These are how many times that block has, how many times this permanent note has been referenced. And you'll notice that some of them are at 2, antithesis. This means that this isn't very important to me. But if I look at something that has 22, story, this means it's very important to me. And with one click, I have every note that I've ever written that is connected to story. And with one more click, I have all the information, my source material, my fleeting notes, my literature notes, my permanent notes, all there. And, okay. And it also shows me the time and date that I had this thought. And it has every relevant note to every relevant note. But ladies and gentlemen, it's not over yet. Because look, so say I'm traversing, I'm like mythology, story mythology, and I go, you know what? This consciousness right here. This is not this is like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? 6 degrees of separation. This is a 2nd degree relationship. This is a 2nd degree relevant note. So basically, mythology has a relevant note for consciousness, but I was able to see that with one click by going into story. And so all I need to do is jump to this block, and guess where I am? I'm in the exact location of where that is, but here's the thing. You see these inline block references? Guess what I can keep doing? I can keep traversing. Oh, I like this permanent note. Guess what I'm going to do? Oh, look at this. I have GPS. I know exactly where I am. November 21st. Oh, look at this. I have all the information that I need. Oh, but wait. Look at this. It has the actual location in the permanent notes, and it has the inline link references. I can keep traversing.
Hey, Bo, is there a reason you would ever want to follow your steps backwards? Like you dove into some area and said, no, I want to go back to such and such. Is that easy or hard?
Yeah, you just hit back on the browser, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. And so basically what you would usually have, you would have a page open in the sidebar, and you would basically just drag over any bullet point, hold Option or Alt, and drag over any bullet point. So we're just going to do manuscript. Right, I'm going to open this in the sidebar, and I'm going to traverse. I'm just going to go into this I'm going to go into the permanent notes page. Right, I'm going to go, you know what? I want to talk about, let's close this. Let's talk about compression. Okay, let's go into compression. Oh, look at this. Look at this fleeting note here. Okay, this is like telling any good story. I'm just going to Alt Option drag this over here, and then let's keep going. Oh, you know what? I think I want to use my literature note over here too. This is great. Perfect. Again, this is all going to be connected back to the permanent node itself. Let's keep working through this. Oh, look at this. I want to travel down here, and let's go to how to live. Oh, this is great. Let's bring this over. And so basically, all you're doing is, I'm not writing a word of text. All you're doing is basically outlining your manuscript, and you just keep traversing through your Zettelkasten, and these are all your notes. And then you can take even this. You can be like, oh, you know what? This is a great relevant note. Let's jump into it. Jump to the block. Okay, this is great. This shows me that. Let's go into journey avoidance, journey meaning. What's the meaning of journey? Okay, this is great. The script is delightful to read. Okay, this is perfect. And basically, there's the linked references. I think I'm pretty tired now, but basically, that's okay. So
in the book, Sonke's.
You're saying something?
Oh yeah. So in the book, Sonke says, right, when you get to the permanent note, and you're trying to see if it stands up because it can be connected to other notes. Do you ever get to the point like where you've done the fleeting notes, the literature note, you're writing the permanent note, and are you kind of going back and forth with the other permanent notes to see if it stands up? Or, you know, so far I've seen it's just kind of go up the pyramid, you know, go up the from. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, you know,
I would say just keep it simple.
Mhm.
Keep it as simple as possible.
Mhm.
Right? And from that simplicity, when complexity arises, you can easily solve it. But if you make it more complicated than it needs to be, and it feels like it needs to be more complicated,
Mhm.
but I have a checklist here. And let me go and share my screen. Is it this one? I think it's this one. Okay. Do you know where? Let's do a checklist. Do you know where things go without having to make a decision? Yeah.
Yep.
Can you stumble upon notes long forgotten serendipitously?
Sure.
Is insight from broadly different threads of conversation?
Mhm.
Can you be surprised?
Mhm.
Do you always know where you are in the Zettelkasten?
Mhm.
Do you have entry
Hopefully.
points? Do you have entry points into the Zettelkasten?
Yep.
Do you see gaps? Can you see gaps in knowledge?
Yes,
Can you see clustering?
definitely.
Do you see how space repetition is inherent in the system?
Mhm.
Almost.
Do you see that the time spent is actually an investment?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Can you search your thoughts?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is this a Zettelkasten? I skipped it. Is this a Zettelkasten?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I believe so.
Yep.
Is there any hacks that will lose functionality?
No.
Is there room to grow in complexity?
Yep.
Oh boy.
Can you do this in anything that isn't block-based in DNA?
No.
Probably not.
Are you ready to build your own?
Oh yes.
Hell yes.
Do you see why I'm so passionate about this?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hell yes. So, Bo, I'd like to raise a question, and stop me if I'm jumping ahead of the race. I personally am a few days behind in the graph. A couple of people have poked at this in the chat. Yvette, Jonathan Hung. I think, and stop me if I'm putting words in your mouth as well. You know, your profession is as an actor, and so you are very directly concerned with the human experience. There's a lot of, you know, about stories and various things like that. I'd love to ask, what happens when we're trying to move into a realm of more empirical, not to say that your process isn't empirical, but more stereotypically or traditionally empirical research, historical, anthropological, scientific, so on and so forth. I think you kind of poked at that a bit when that was my comment about sort of a perpendicular system. That's like, oh, when we need to actually build logical arguments, linear threads of thought, things like that, like the Zettel is kind of the like that's the inside of the Eulers is the Zettelkasten. I guess the question that I'm asking is that coming? Because I think I'm kind of bumping up against that myself as I'm trying to do some writing on my own using this, and I haven't gotten there yet.
That's a common thing that happens. And it's a lot of times the reason that you're confronted with that is because it's so different. But it's actually not. Because yes, you have these facts and you have this information, right? But what does that information mean to you? Because you can have a logical statement, you can have a formula, right? You could have Euler's identity, you can have G, right? You could describe what that means to you and then connect that with you and your interpretation of that. And you have to remember that if this is a Zettelkasten, if I'm following every tenet and principle of a Zettelkasten, Sonke's book actually explicitly says that this is meant for what? Researchers,
right,
nonfiction writers, and so on and so forth. What I hear you saying is that you haven't built one out yet, and it's scary, and it's a lot of time. And I'm just gonna say, I feel like it's harder for people that are creative because the book never even mentions creativity. I'm assuming that insight is the same as creativity.
Yeah, I guess it demonstrates in a way either a lack of trust or faith in my own thought processes, or
that took so much courage, by the way, because it's easy to hide behind all these facts and figures and, you know, I'm very scientific, this is what I'm thinking about, but it's easy to hide behind that without you declaring to the world what you're really thinking.
Yeah, and that's when Jonathan was commenting on whether, like, why do they have to be long sentences? It seems chunky. It's like, well, if we have to take a stance on something and say, well, this is what I think about this, and we may, as we're traversing the graph later, come back to it and disagree with ourselves, but that disagreement also demonstrates something to us. Like, oh, well, that's what I thought then, this is what I think now. And I guess as the other part of it, and this is maybe my own internal thing here, but like, sometimes it feels a bit, pardon my French, but like masturbatory or sort of like self-aggrandizing to think, well, my thoughts are so great. Like, I'm so concerned with my thoughts and I'm in here writing what I think and what I think and what do I have to say about a damn thing? Like, so, I want to bring somebody else's thoughts in there so I know that I'm not crazy, or it's not just me thinking I have so much incredible that's to say.
It feels like imposter syndrome, like you're afraid.
A bit,
of,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
hey, Bo, can I chip in over here?
Of course.
Awesome. So look, bro, you remember me probably from maybe 8 or 9 months ago when we were, you know, working up together, and I've been following you very passionately all this time. And coming back to Mike's point, so reproducibility in the scientific community, it's more about data and where your thoughts are coming from, how those data is transformed and comes out at insights. And when we look at the world of social sciences, we don't have that, because that's the world of interpretation. What Rome research is doing with all the block referencing embedded into it, and the method that Bo has actually almost perfected, if I may say, with the Zettelkasten here, is brings that ability of to the world of interpretation, to the world of what one scientist many moons ago called the nomological network, or a graph where we can actually have our interpretations intertwined together in a way that if I say something, if I say BS, I can actually reverse back and traverse all the sources of where my BS originated from other interpretations of my own self in the past and how I have changed those. And comes back to your point of then connecting other people's interpretations together. So we are actually heading towards a world of dialectics and a world of dialogue and debate where polarities can actually come together and then say, look, I'm red, you're blue, or you're red and I'm blue. It's fine as long as we can now expose each other's graphs to each other and then work from where the commonalities are and then build on from there. Look, this is magic, bro. This is awesome stuff.
And let me just say this too. I mean, there's a couple of things that you need to know. The whole purpose of this entire book club is to give you enough fortitude, mental fortitude, enough push into the realm of the lonely and dark months when you're doing this on your own. And you're not going to get this instant gratification. And it's about building you up so you can get to that point when you hit that critical mass, when you don't know where your notes are anymore. And that's the true testament of what it feels like to be able to offload your thinking. And it's just like what I just showed you is me doing it. The thing is, for this to work, you have to do it. You have to experience what it feels like to think and then to see your thinking. And if anyone tells you that this is the only way to do it, I would run. Because you have to find your way.
On that subject, do you have any advice for those of us who've been stumbling along the other way with keywords? You know, I've got keywords and hierarchies and outlines and stuff, and I want to clean up my mess, basically.
I mean, I was talking to someone last night, and it was like, it's just this idea that nothing is ever wasted. You know,
yeah.
It's like you never start from a blank slate. And so all of that information that you've worked with, you've wrestled with throughout your life, it's all there. It just hasn't been written yet. And so my recommendation is, if you want to begin this communication partner, you have to start with the first hello, with the first hi.
But my point is that I've got a huge amount of stuff in my Rome graph already, but it's got, you know, keywords in the middle of a paragraph and that kind of stuff. And it's working spectacularly, by the way. I've never been more productive in my life. But do you have any advice for how to bring it into this structure, which I see is so much better?
Start from scratch.
New graph.
Oh, no.
No. You don't even need a new graph. Like, what you can do is you can this is the beauty of it. Say you've done all these notes on public speaking, right? And then you start creating your new Zettelkasten. Anytime you go to that index that says public speaking and you're doing a manuscript, you have every other time you've used public speaking. So everything is usable now, if that makes sense. And so I would say, yes, you have all these notes, you have the old way of doing it, but once you start creating a communication partner, none of that has gone to waste. I would say keep the Rome graph that you have.
Oh, yeah.
Unless it's just too slow that it doesn't load. But again, I don't use any linked references. Yeah, I don't use any linked references except for the 3 that I need for the GPS. But again, it's also understand that this is, like Andy Henson put it, this is a simple, lightweight structure that it's just here. What you're able to add on top of that is what I'm excited for. And the rigorousness in which you need to do a lit review, the rigorousness you need to do your thesis paper, to have Project Zettelkasten's layer on top of that, to have GTD with the Zettelkasten simple lightweight structure on top of that. You can do it all. I've seen it. But all I'm presenting to you right now is just the simplest form at the basic level, simple and lightweight.
Thank you.
Could I respond to Mike Newton's concern?
Yes, I'm just gonna let you guys talk. I'm exhausted.
And I want to do that because I have exactly the same concern that Mike enunciated. But seeing Bo's Zettelkasten, where his particular focus is gathering information about screenplays and writing screenplays. In other words, you know, from a science perspective, you know, could view his interests as very focused and very narrow, and that actually has given me a lot more confidence that this can work in the area of science and is not limited to to sociology, what Lumen's specialty was all about. So I actually was really encouraged by that. I don't know if that helps at all, Mike, but I think it will.
Yeah.
The second thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
The second thing is the permanent notes as pages being basically a sentence or two. I hated that idea when I first saw it, but the more I thought about it, the more that I don't have to rely completely on a tag, that I can see in a relatively small area a crystallized thought, the more important I think it is to me. And on top of that, Rome's searching is really, really terrific. It's a fuzzy searching method. So if you were looking for a particular permanent note, and as you traverse your Zettelkasten, maybe it's not coming up quickly, if you just put in the search bar 2 of the words that you used in your permanent note, you will see that immediately and be able to jump directly to it. So I see a lot more power to that, to something that I just did not like at first. I'm actually pretty excited about that. So
yeah, I love what you're saying. Oh, please,
I'm
welcome.
Jump in a little bit.
Yeah, welcome.
So I'm getting so much from this, and it seems really powerful. I was just saying, I had a quick chat with Mike sort of separately about sort of struggling to connect everything that I'm getting from this with. I sat down on Thursday. I've been invited to write a book chapter about sort of healthcare tech, basically. And I've got a list and about limitations. So I've got a big list of, sort of things I'm talking about, and it's been really powerful in helping me sort of coalesce my thoughts. But at the end of the day, I need to read a bunch of papers. I need to try and work out what those papers are saying, work out what I think about that, and I'm using literature notes, I'm starting using fleeting notes. What I'm finding is I can't read a paper and come up with a sort of a permanent note that sums up that paper, and that's something really important that I can then put into that chapter. It's more, okay, they've said this about this, how many people in the world have a mobile phone, how many people don't, how the cultures change in terms of data management and all those sort of things. It's trying to pull these together. And I haven't quite worked out how to go from reading a paper that might have 6 or 7 interesting ideas that I can kind of pull in and run with, turn that into a single permanent note, and then that link that back into how I then go on to write a book chapter. So it's just kind of getting my head around that. And I've almost got these sort of this, which I'm finding really interesting and powerful. And then I'm trying to play that back into perhaps it's my workflow, perhaps it's the way I'm thinking, trying to play that back into, yes, and now I need to write this book chapter. And I've got these sort of 15 odd headings or questions or ideas that I will slowly wrangle into something that is whatever it is, 8,000 words, 10,000 words of a book chapter. But that's my thinking. It's not really a question, it's not really a comment, it's just sort of putting out my thinking and my brain as it's working at the moment.
Yeah, Yvette, I run into the same thing. So I have replaced the notion of permanent notes into a new category called hypotheses, because I struggle with, academic writing or business writing, I'm more used to like, let's lay out the storyline and then let's kind of find where what we've learned fits in or not. So to me, it seems to be both a mix of traversing it, almost like fleeting notes, literature notes, almost ground up, but occasionally just starting with, okay, here are like 3 or 4 hypotheses. I'm just going to write it and then see how it shapes up. It's not like true in the spirit of this particular book, but at least works for me.
Let me ask you a question to everyone. How long have you been familiar with working like this?
Less than a year.
5 years. Okay.
Okay, so let me ask you this. My second question is, how long have you been mastering the skill of drilling down, getting the A grades, and going, I'm going to think this way, top down, very top down. I've read your answers. You know what top down is when I'm talking about it, the context I'm talking about it. And you compare those two ways of working. And it's which one has more, I know more about this. I'm more familiar with this. And again, it's not, it's just, you know, if I had a purpose, it's just to raise a mirror, right? That's all I do. And that's what we need in life. We need people to raise the mirror on us that aren't scared to tell us, this is you, right? And it's like you have 1 year at most, maybe 2-3 years if you read Sonke's book when it first came out. And then it's like, unless you're German, then you've got maybe 10 years. But still, it's like compare that with this. And it's like, be easy on yourself. Be easy on, let's, you know, just hug ourselves because, you know, this is all rather new. The technology of this block-based granularity is brand new. Sonke's book, 2017, brand new. In the history arc of note-taking, you know, 1950s and 60s, it's all brand new. Yet, I want to encourage you that we are on the forefront of something spectacular because I feel like you all see how powerful this could be, especially if we started this younger, at an earlier age, you know? And, you know, the simplicity of it is that it's nothing that we have to actually learn. It's actually just how we do. We relate things that we don't know with things that we do know. We connect it in different contexts to remember it, which is very childlike. And so I would just say, you know, let's be easy on ourselves and let's also just, you know, appreciate that we are at the forefront of this. And that, you know, I think it's a responsibility. It's tough because usually the first ones through the door have the most arrows in their back. And you know, and also look at how much work you've done up to this point. It's phenomenal. And
I think it's fitting, Bo, that apologies. Yeah. You go ahead.
Well, let me just end with this. It's just, I think it's, you don't know what this is yet because you haven't done it yet. I've only shown you how I do it. And the notes that are going to form, that are going to crystallize for you, are going to be varied as much as your personalities are varied. And if this works, if 3 months, 6 months from now, you look back at your notes and you go, this isn't me, then I've led you astray and you can shoot me. But if you look back 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you go, holy shit, this is me. This is me better than I can see me.
I think it's fitting, Bo, that the snippet that you picked when you were first demonstrating the process on this was from chapter 6 and how to take smart notes. And the specific line, you may have done this by design.
I didn't.
But
I just, yeah.
It's fitting that the line that you picked was that when we started to shift towards shipping containers, well, then the entire industry and then by extension, the entire world had to change. So 2 things. The first is, again, we are all here reconfiguring our shipping containers and our shipping ships and our shipping industries. That's the first part. The second part, and this is maybe the coolest part, is that all of us in here and the other RBC crews that have had the chance to go through this too, we are all of us now in the process of reinventing in our local spaces the industries and you know, the innovations of the future that are happening as a result of the shipping container. So Bo comes to this group and he says, hey, let's use the shipping container. And all of us are like, why? What does that mean? And now these questions that we have, what we're trying to go through, we're all of us thinking, well, if we have containers now, what do we do with that? And so, you know, it's not an exaggeration, I suppose, for Bo to say that, you know, you hope this changes the world. It will, because each one of us will take this back to our spaces and figure out what does this mean for us? And so
Mike, let me ask you this.
Kudos.
Mike, let me ask you this. Yosefu, let me just ask Mike this one question, okay? My question is going to be, you know, if the amount of complexity that we can offload to a digital Zettelkasten, what does that give us in return? Like, just imagine that.
Well, ultimately, it shifts the work from the remembering to the doing. And that's part of what's so terrifying about it, is because when you offload the responsibility of the remembering, you no longer have the excuse of not doing, because all that's left is the doing. And that's ultimately what's so terrifying about it, because you have to contend with yourself and whether you are doing the work or whether you're not doing the work. And the ideas that you're having in your Zettelkasten, those are your ideas, and you have to take ownership over that too. And I think that's pretty fucking scary. Not gonna lie, and I'm probably not alone in feeling that way.
You're not alone in this journey. You have an alumni from RBC3. You've got your crew in RBC4. You're gonna have new fresh waters from RBC5.
Hey, let's get carried away a couple of steps in the future. Imagine that once we have all started to build our amazing knowledge graphs with all these zeros in there, we are essentially creating our own search engines for our kin and our families and extended people out there. No more Google. This is the future. You know, I want to look at the world through Bo's eyes, through Mike's eyes, through Matt's eyes. And I know what their engine looks like because it is consistent on a framework, which is the container analogy, but at the same time, it is very unique and very interpretative from each individual's perspective. That's the future we're heading into, right? And I'm excited. One day algorithms are going to be built on top of Rome, and then we'll have this marketplace of algorithms and search algorithms that either exploit or they explore different ways to navigate multiple graphs, connect them together. So we are essentially investors at this early age and building that first levels of entry points into the new future internet.
Can I add to that real quick? Is that I'm not Rome like specific. It's just the technology. It's just like Excel. Like you have Excel, but then you have Google Sheets, and now you have Airtable. It's like the same, you know, that relational database. All Rome did was bring it to the world. But like blocks, granularity at the block, that's just technology, right? So even if Rome goes away, it's just the technology of having it at the block level is what changes it. I just wanted to add that. But I mean, I love Rome, but at the same time, it's like if 4 years from now Rome isn't here, you still have the technology.
Well, I've mentioned this before, Bo, but it just pops back up into my mind again. I mean, it's like Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile. I mean, that's kind of what you're doing here, right? I mean, you're showing us, look, here's this system and here's what it's capable of. And then everybody else who ran a 4-minute mile after that had to believe that they could do it because Roger Bannister did it first, right? What was once a unique thing for one person is now something everybody does. And I think that's what
was impossible. It was impossible. They thought it was impossible to run a 4-minute mile.
Absolutely. So we have to then go out, we have to believe that we can do it, but you've already shown that that's possible.
It's impossible to do a digital Zettelkasten. It's impossible to do a digital Zettelkasten that doesn't copy paste it, bringing over the analog limitations, but to interpret the fundamental concepts of a Zettelkasten, clustering, index, relevant notes, fleeting notes, literature notes, thinking process, and all of that into the digital realm.
And not to bag on Shuomi, but I watched his Zettelkasten video and he made this statement to me that was very, very powerful, which is, he said, sometimes I don't summarize because I'm too lazy to do so. And that's exactly what he said in his video, right? And so that's what it boils down to. It's about effort and it's about work. You have to put the work in to get the results.
And you know, 3 months from now, when you've got 35 permanent notes, 2 months from now, 2 weeks from now, when you're working on your own Zettelkasten, you're gonna wanna go, can I just want to do it this way instead. And all I'm going to say is that if you do that, I can't guarantee that it's not going to break. You know, and I would just urge you to be patient with it until you can finally trust it. And once you trust it, then add the layers of complexity that you need to.
In my question, Bo, sorry, just to follow up would be, I think if we get to that point, then we need to stop and take a break because it's like working out, right? Once you get tired, and you say, I'm going to cut corners, that's when you injure yourself, right? So if we're
Yes.
getting to that point, maybe we take a break, we stop, then we return and we put the work back in.
You're absolutely right.
In response to what you just said, Bo, there's a wonderful quote that Connor White Sullivan tweeted just a little while ago called Gall's Law, Gall. He says, all complex systems evolve from simple systems that worked. If you want a complex system, you start with a simple system, and you only add things as far as the simple system allows you to do so and keep working. And that's the only way to do it. That's the only way to get there.
And trust in the community too. Like you have people like the accountability partners that you're gonna grow. Like we're gonna go through all of this. Like today was all about just showing you the final mechanics. That's all of the mechanics, right? And now it's about, okay, let's figure out how we're gonna structure the workflow individually. How are you gonna capture your notes? How are you gonna where are your process notes gonna go? Or what's the template that how are you gonna put this all together that works for you? And your specific, okay, if I have a phone here and a laptop here, then these are the tools that I have during the afternoon. Okay, perfect. I need to figure out a workflow for that. And that's why it's never cookie cutter. It has to be personalized. And so it's the same thing with when you're when are you going to process your notes? Who's going to keep you accountable to process your notes? And it's that's the next part of this. And it's a very lonely road to build it out. But you have people around you that are going to be going through with you. How do you protect the investing?
Part
Yeah.
as well, if that's all right as well. What I noticed was when I'm doing the fleeting notes, and then I go into basically when you take on that task. When you start it and then you say you need a break and come back, like for me, what I did at one stage is I started the fleeting notes and I left the literature notes, and I went away and I thought about it and I came up with like a really good idea. I felt like I got the connection, but then when I got back to it, because I think I left it for so long, the trail of thought for me has changed to, it's like I changed my thought of how I wanted to word it again. So I don't know if that's a thing of sometimes where you have to do the whole process at one time to kind of keep that flow. What would you say to that?
It's like leaving the lawn. It's like leaving the laundry, the wet clothes in the laundry overnight. You come back to it and it's like, oh, it smells. And it's also like, you have all these books that tell you like this is the way to do it, right? Eat the frog, right? Anki, SRS, spaced repetition. And then you think about what's a Pomodoro timer? 25 minutes to focus time. What's block times in scheduling? Where you turn off your phone and you have a block of time that you just get your work done. If you think about it, when you start with that current timestamp, because you'll notice that every permanent note that I start, when I drag it over from the page that I have it stored over to the daily notes page, what's the very first thing I do? I go current timestamp. That immediately brings over that first domino that goes, hey, I'm about to get some work done. And then how long does a permanent note usually take to make from processing of the fleeting literature and permanent note and adding it to the Zettelkasten? Around 25 minutes, which to me, if I'm not mistaken, is a Pomodoro timer. So it's really just, it's in a fast-paced world. Maybe this simple lightweight system can give us the motivation to utilize all the different books that tell us how to be productive, how to make use of our time here on Earth. And so I look at it like, yes, it's difficult to break the pattern of losing focus, but maybe there's also solutions that are right underneath our nose.
Yeah, it's like the marshmallow effect in a way, isn't it? You kind of holding back for the bigger gains of the whole Zettelkasten when it's all put together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I think the community comes into play. You have to have that solid community that's going through this with you, that, is cheering you on. I had so many people cheering me on in the beginning, and it was just like, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them, like, keep going, fire emoji, and it's something as simple as that, but it's a very personal journey. like how Marlando's Zettelkasten is going to look, all the structure, the wording, like the top level parent blocks are going to be completely different. It's going to be him. And I think that's what's, my picture's a little bit blurry here, but maybe it's that. Maybe it's also discovering who we are too, you know? And that's, that I think if there was a higher purpose for all of this, I think that's what it is. The better that we know ourselves, the better that we treat the world. The better that we treat the world, that's the compound effect.
Yeah, I think for me it was like, as I said, I had a good connection when I discovered it. It's kind of like you it's like in a way you disregard the ego and you kind of become, it's a different part of you that's speaking, and I think it's a beautiful thing. I definitely think it's an amazing thing, and the way that you actually improve on how you've done this process and picking out different ways to get the message across and make people get it. Talented, mate, talented. But yeah, I'll let somebody else speak. Thank you.
I want you to get to this point where I'm at, where
Hey,
I don't have
Bo.
to question it. Yeah.
Hey, Bo, it's Michael Newport.
Yes.
Nuts and bolts question. I think you've got a lot of people on this call who are really excited to try this out, whether they're going to do it in their existing graph, or maybe I'm the only one who wants to create a new graph to start this out. What are the next steps? I mean, I'd like to get the CSS, obviously, for your key tags here. I'd like to have some kind of idea of how you came up with your tag structure, which I think is pretty critical to categorizing and et cetera on your permanent notes. What's the best way to get going? The one thing I'm afraid of is I have a ton of stuff. Been doing Rome for a year. I have a ton of stuff in Rome. I think it would be, for me, counterproductive to try to start and just put it all in this system. That's why I want to start fresh, but I would like to start soon.
Okay. The only thing that you would need would be the CSS, which is copy paste.
Okay.
And then start capturing. But again, I also want to say that it's preemptively solving the problems that are going to come up. And one of those problems that's going to come up is, how do you capture? Where does it go? How do you bring it into your graph? Because it's one of the limitations. It's like, the limitation is that Rome doesn't have an API, right? And so that's what I was going to discuss this whole week. So yeah. So I'll probably just have today's lesson or tomorrow's lesson just be about, okay, I want you to start capturing, and here's the CSS, and I want you to start thinking about the tools that you have around you to capture with. I don't know, I'll think about that. But yes, I get what you're saying, Michael Walsh, and I'm going to say it's all primitives. There's not like there's a lot of advanced stuff. There's no JavaScript. There's no hacks. It's literally just a copy paste of CSS, which I can just literally just post on the shared graph. Cool.
Great. Thanks.
I liked we can delve into more of this, but the transcription and dictation stuff.
Yeah, that'll all be this week.
Yeah, cool.
I've got 3 hands up: Michael, CK, and Yosevu. Can we start with Yosevu? I know he had something before.
Yeah. So my basic question is, what do you think are, the shortcomings or the areas of uncertainty that you have with the system? And I know that might sound like a counterintuitive question, but I think it's still a system that we're using. It's a tool. The writing itself is a tool. We talk about writing as thinking, but ultimately it's a tool. And you could imagine different tools for kind of clarifying and systematizing our thoughts maybe in the future. And so I'm just wondering if you've thought about what potential, what, if anything, could be a weak point in the system, are the tools that we use with the system.
I think it's so simple that it's unbreakable. I mean, I've done my best to get underneath it. It's not just me. I've gotten everyone that I know to get underneath it, and you're going to try doing it as well.
Yeah.
And I'm going to urge you to try to break it. And then once you go, shit, I can't get underneath it, you're going to be my best raving fan. It just is what it is. And you know, I'm not smart enough to have thought this up. Something was flowing through me and I just saw it. And it's like something glimmered at me and I went down that rabbit hole. And it's, yeah, do your best to get underneath it. You know, I urge you. But I also look at it like it's so fucking simple that you can't really get underneath it. You can layer on top of it. You can layer on top of it project Zettelkastens. You can layer on top of it a lit review. You can layer on top of it the scientific evidence that still needs to be buttressed with more information by going into an intermediary page, staging area. You can definitely add more complexity to it. But in regards to getting underneath it, I've gone at different angles. I've been on Zoom calls. You know what I mean? Like, how many people have I talked to try to get underneath it? So I want to know, like, but I just don't see any, because it's too simple. If it was complex, then I would understand it. But it's like, relate what I know to what I don't know. Look through in different contexts. That's it. Okay. Michael, CK, and Isaiah. And then...
I have a very practical question. Probably I missed it in all that much information. First, is there a template to create the structure of relevant and permanent node and so on that I can use in my own graph?
Yeah.
And how to get it there? And the second thing is you use a lot of shortcuts, some with keys. You always tell them, but these are quite a lot. Is there some kind of cheat sheet where I can look up these shortcuts?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Template, all you need to do is copy paste again. Copy paste. I'll put that up. It's literally just semicolon, semicolon, and whatever you want to call it. Capture a new fleeting note, whatever you want to call it, or Zettelkasten structure, and then automatically it'll pop up. In regards to the shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, I know there's like lots of I think Andy has a great sort of newsletter. Andy Henson has a great newsletter with yeah, see, Patrick's got his thumbs up. Maybe you can jump in on that, and then that'll show you all of these little quick shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts.
Okay.
So in the Rome, under the three dots, under settings, there's a list for hotkeys, and that'll give you a list of all of the hotkeys that are available, including the ones that Bo was talking about. And it's great if you don't like one, you could actually change the hotkey to get the same functionality. So that should work. Just take a look in the settings portion of the app.
Thank you, Michael. CK and Isaiah.
All right. Hey, man. So this is not so technical. It's more about how you use your methodology. So one thing that sticks out for me a lot is the amount of energy you invest in wringing out all of the emotionality, the associative ideas, the references, the memories, and all that stuff is tremendous. One, I would love to know, is that what it takes to get the most out of the system? So that's one, right? The flip side of that question is then also, you process all your notes because the investment, the emotionality is so high. And I'm sure, you know, ideas come at you all the time and you jot them down. Do you then process all of your notes?
Well, let's deal with the first one. I think the first one just answers itself. I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, I can't make anyone want to live a deep existence. You know, if people want to live a shallow existence, that's fine. But what I was wringing out wasn't me getting an A on the test. It was me discovering my own thinking. It was me thinking through my writing. And so for me, that's something that I value. I value being a better thinker. And I can't make anyone do that. I can't force anyone to think that way or want that. I just hope that it's attractive enough and people want that enough that that's what they seek out. And so yes, you can have very not so much thought through ideas, but then what happens is when you look back at that, you're going to see yourself. And that's the scary part. And so maybe that's the path that some people need to take. Maybe that's the path. Like like the only way that someone, like if these are really my notes written in my own words and then I see it over time, then it's immediately going to show me a non-distorted reflection of who I am, correct? And so if I see a non-distorted reflection of who I am, it's going to be either fuck this or ouch, you know? And listen, some people got to go through the ouch. And what better way than to have these notes in a communication partner that not only shows you that, but also shows you the transformation. Because all you need to do is add another note underneath those notes that are very shallow, and then you're going to start seeing, holy crap, this is the exact moment where I started changing. Holy crap, these are all the different ways that I've changed because all the relevant notes are connected. Holy crap, you can literally see the date and timestamp of these moments. Holy crap, you can actually see the thoughts that started to change. And then you can also do this. Once you master the trust with that, you have to realize that Sonke sometimes didn't have he didn't have reference notes. Once you trust this, I say once you are long past a critical mass, and I haven't even done this yet, right? But once you far past a critical mass, sometimes you don't even need references and you can just go straight from fleeting to permanent. And it's like, once you see that, right? That's the first part. The second part was, I forget. I went on this tangent.
You have a lot of thoughts come at you all the time.
Yes.
All down them. Do you process all of them, just like the way you do permanent notes?
The level of discernment that comes to the surface inherently through seeing your thinking will diminish that addiction to always wanting to capture every note, because that's very shallow and broad compared to deep and narrow, you know. And and then as you go deep and narrow, you can start expanding and getting more breadth. But it's really that delineation, because you have this quick, fast hitting top level, surface level stuff that are like, I have to capture this, I have to capture this, I have to capture this. But then my next question is, well, if it's important, then it will come up again in relationship to things that I've already been thinking about, no? Because there's definitely a dopamine hit. There's a sort of consumatory, is it consumatory? I forget what it is, but there's that hit of like, yes, I captured it. And it's like, yes, I captured it. And I feel good about capturing it, but then like, it just goes. And like, there's no utility behind it.
Yeah, thank you.
Isaiah.
I just add something.
Yes, or Colby wants to jump in real quick. Sorry, Isaiah.
I'm just going to quickly say, when you're capturing notes, you're just capturing every random thought that's occurring to you. But when you decide to start processing those fleeting notes, sometimes you're kind of looking at, the first thing you kind of do is kind of look at it like, does this have any value? Because when you captured it, you didn't have time to think about that. So a lot of stuff you'll start looking at would be like, it's not worthy of my time anymore. So you just toss it out aside. And the ones that you know that still has value, where it's resonating, you want to explore it, those are the ones you're going to process. So even though you captured, say, 50, you might not process all 50. You might process, say, 30 of the 50, for example. Like, you don't have to process milk, for example, right?
But it's also, Colby, like, I also want to add, it's like, that's time. And it's like, the more that we get, like, time is the most valuable thing. So it's like, the more time that we're spending on capturing things that obviously don't come up to the surface or don't have any depth behind it, then the more discernment, the more that we know, okay, it's just as important to know what we want, but it's also as important to know what we don't want. And so like, as you go through this process, you're going to be like, well, why am I capturing these ideas? This isn't even important. I don't even have any notes that are connected to it. So it's like, so yeah, I mean, go through the hard parts. Isaiah.
And then, Bo, I do appreciate the time, and this has been great. My brain is on fire, but in a good way. I do have a question about inline references. I haven't used them much in my own database. So when you're looking at your relevant notes and you click on that little square with the numbers, it shows you all the other tabs. What is that showing you? Can you walk me through that?
Mm-hmm. So basically, if I go back to this note here, everyone can see, right? Let me shift click on permanent notes into the sidebar. So basically, all of these are block references, right? It's actually not the text. This is the beauty of what Rome can do, is that it's actually not the text that's on this block, right? This is a block, right? This is a block reference, right? But it's actually this, and this. And so what I'm basically doing is when I'm Alt or Option dragging anything underneath here, what I'm doing is I'm copying this block reference. So it's this block reference that I'm copying over here, and then I'm pasting it here. You see how it's this code leads to this block, but this block has two pieces of information behind it. And so now what I've done is I've basically linked destiny with obstacles. You see that? And I have it twice. Let me go read over two of them. And so because I've block referenced this block, what this is showing me, it's showing me the in line, without having to open up another page, in line, it's showing me all of the times that this block destiny has been referenced in other permanent notes. And so with one click, I have all of the indexes that are thumbnails to destiny connected and shown.
Right.
And so basically that gives me all of the information that I need with one click. That looks like a button. Is that clear?
It is very clear. Thank you. And what you just did there, you clicked on relevant notes for journey, for instance. What underneath that? Like, what is that showing you? Is that showing you?
This is my entire permanent note. Like, let me show you. So I go to destiny, right? And I go to obstacles, okay?
Mm-hmm.
May 16th, 2021. Let me zoom in a little bit. May 16th, 2021, 1546, right?
Right.
May 16th, 2021, 1546. This is my daily notes page. This is my permanent notes page, right? And so when I click on this is just CSS, by the way, right? When I click on this, I have this entire page or this entire permanent note from the daily notes page showing in my Zettelkasten. And so you'll notice biggest difficulty, right? It's the exact same text. And so basically what I'm able to do is when I want to traverse and when I want to have insight, I have all of the information that's on the daily notes page in focus and scope. So when I am traversing looking for insight, I can easily see all the information that I need. This is only pertaining to the information that I need. I don't need other extraneous information, but this is basically every thought that I had and how I got to that thought. Is that clear?
It is clear. Thanks, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way to show what is on that particular page without going to the page. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a quick, something that you can open and close really quickly.
Frictionless.
You know,
it's a frictionless way to traverse through your notes while providing you context of how you got to that idea. And again, the less friction that you have, the more you can focus on the thinking. There's less decisions that need to be made. Patrick.
Hey, Bo. With your example, for instance, the permanent note which you tagged obstacles. If I understand correctly, you can have another permanent note in which also is hashtagged obstacles in another part of the permanent brain. So as like in another namespace, because it's in another context. And if I understand it correctly, then that would be the beauty for me. If I then just go to the hashtag obstacles, I would then have several permanent notes which have the same theme, but are interlinked. Am I right in this thinking?
Yeah, and this is almost
which are interlinked.
So it's almost like motivation has it twice. One was written on November 14th. The other one was written on October 9th. But they're completely different thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. That's very good for me. That's exactly what I thought. The other thing is, let's say, for instance, you later on come to another book which tackles the motivation or obstacle, and you want to put it actually in the same tree or in the same position because it extends, or it's another argument. Do you edit the original note, or do you put it as a Folgezettel with underneath the first note? How do you do it?
So when you're adding a note, right? It can literally fit anywhere, correct?
Right.
And what I hear you saying is, what happens if you have motivation on the same branch twice, correct?
Right.
And my question for you is this: if the note can literally live anywhere, you don't know what the crystallized note is going to be because you're going to be writing in response to the notes above it.
Yep.
The information that you're building is not an archive. The information that you're building is how this note is related to this note, which is related to this note. So you might start with motivation, but what's going to be underneath motivation? How about inherent? Right? And then how about obstacles? And then how about the motivation to have obstacles? Do you see what I'm saying? It's a thread of conversation. So if it comes up, I don't see it happening, honestly. I think it's coming from a top-down way of looking at it, like, I want to structure these ideas this way, but this is what's going to happen. You're going to face that problem and you're going to solve it. That complexity is going to arise and you're going to solve it.
Yeah, I had a thought in mind, but yeah, let's see when it comes up how I deal with it.
I don't think it's going to come up, honestly.
Okay.
If you're doing the index, right? Yeah, why would it come up? Why would you talk about the same thing without getting deeper into what motivation is?
And the idea that I had is, for instance, if I want to create a tree about philosophy, for instance, and I go into a theme like, for
how
instance,
do you know that you're going to make a tree about philosophy?
Yeah, if I read something about philosophy, a book about philosophy, so
you don't know that you're going to write a permanent note on philosophy. No, you're going to go back to your permanent note. You're going to go to your Zettelkasten, and if it doesn't fit anywhere else, then maybe you would have philosophy as the top level parent block. But you don't know where that's going to fit. You're coming at it from a top-down way of working. You're thinking, I know where this note fits. This note is going to fit underneath philosophy. This is the second argument. But that's not a Zettelkasten. What you're doing is you're making a collection of information.
Yeah.
What you're going to do is I read a book on how to take smart notes. Where did it go underneath? It went underneath story. Like how to write a screenplay. Why does that happen? Because it doesn't matter where the note lives. And I don't know what that index is going to be. You have a preconceived idea. You made your conclusion before you even started. Exactly, Colby.
Yeah.
And if you do that, and again, it's inherent. That's what we do. It's because that's how we were taught. And so you have 28 days of working like this, or you have 28 years of working like this. And it's like, of course you're going to want to fall back to this. But if you keep it as simple as possible, just do the steps, and then it's just like,
yeah, that's good. Thanks.
It's just sinking in, Bo, that
I planted a seed, by the way. Like everyone right now is like, what the fuck is he talking about? But just wait. Yeah, keep going, Mike. Sorry.
So it's just sinking in now, and I'm sorry, I'm slow, but we've been doing some practice permanent notes along the way, and it's always been, literally from the bottom up. But what you did today is before you wrote that permanent note, you went and you looked at all of your other permanent notes. Granted, perhaps by categories first, so you didn't actually have to read every single one. And only when you decided what category it was in, or what tag it belonged under, or perhaps which note it was most relevant to, did you actually write the permanent note in response to that note. That was pretty important to me today, And it was only after you wrote that permanent note that you basically block referenced it into what you were doing with your fleeting notes and your literature notes, etc.
Let me, hopefully this can help clear. You're absolutely right, right? But, you know, when you see this hashtag, you think that this is how I've categorized it, right? But that's actually, it's, again, the hashtag plays, it's like the infinite variable. This invention of the hashtag is revolutionary, because think about this, okay? You think that this is how I've categorized it. You think that I've categorized it by, let's say, story, right? But it's not. Or character. You think that I categorize, say this was philosophy. You think that I've categorized it as philosophy, but really what is this? It's a thumbnail of the permanent note. But it happens to play a dual role, what it also categorizes it. You know? And I hope that comes off clear. It's difficult to explain. So any of these top level parent blocks, I didn't know that that's what it was gonna be until I read through my notes and I was like, it doesn't fit anywhere else. So now I'm starting a new conversation. When I'm starting a new conversation, is it usually going to be super in depth? No, it's more broad. But as I add new notes from multiple different sources, then I continue to add these notes. But it's not that I'm not doing the argument beforehand.
So when do you write the category? When do you write the tag?
When I'm making the permanent note. So again, I'll go through it one more time. So it's basically, it's the category is a secondary result, right? It's almost like that's like the secondary benefit of doing it this way, right? It's the secondary benefit. So it's almost like, okay, so I come in here, right? I'm gonna open up permanent notes over here, and I think it's, I think it was down here. Right? So basically, I look at this, hopefully you can see that, right? I go scene objective, pursuit, progress, incentive, blank. And so now, these just happen to be categorical. They happen to be a way that we've organized thoughts. It happens to be how we stumble upon ideas. But really what it is, it's just a thumbnail of this permanent note. And all I'm doing is because there's a relationship between this and this, between this and this, this and this, if I follow that relationship down, then obviously the next index that I make, the next thumbnail that I make of this information is going to have a relationship. But all I'm doing is I could probably explain this better, but all I'm doing is I'm following this down, and obviously the next idea could be obstacles. Right? And now all I'm doing is taking all the information from the fleeting and literature notes, I'm crystallizing an idea in response to incentive obstacles. What are the obstacles that get in the way of incentive?
So if I'm writing my first permanent note, so there are no tags now. I'm writing my very first permanent note. And so I wrote the note. I'm happy with what it says. But then I'm going to give it a tag, and the tag is somehow
No. You write the tag first.
Write the tag first.
The index always comes first. You want to know how you can stumble upon this later. So as you crystallize your idea, you do hashtag. What is the thumbnail of this idea that I want to crystallize? And so if your very first permanent note, so that's why, does that make sense?
Well, it does make sense, but I just hadn't thought of doing it that way.
So the index always comes first.
Okay, so you're creating the index as you go. If you're writing your second permanent note and it happens to fit under the tag, great. But if it doesn't, new tag.
Bo didn't write the permanent note on the permanent note tag. He wrote it in the Zettelkasten page. Thumbnail first. Yeah, thumbnail is the index. The index is basically your entryway into your Zettelkasten. It's a way that you could stumble upon your notes later. And traditionally, the index was used to see the cards that are behind the card that you have in front of you. But now that we can actually see the cards behind it because we can see the branching sequence, the index is now has a more powerful use case, and that is to see the permanent note without seeing the permanent note. And if I can see the thumbnail, it's a frictionless way of understanding what that high resolution image is, or what that high resolution permanent note is.
And how do you choose? And I'm sorry to monopolize it or really dig myself into a hole here, but how do you choose how broad or narrow the index term is in the beginning?
If you don't have any permanent notes, how broad do you think it needs to be? If you're starting a new conversation, like, just don't think about with your head, think about with like a conversation. You're having a conversation with someone that you've never met before. What are you going to talk about? Hey, where are you from? That would be like, if someone asks you, hey, where are you from? Do you tell them, I was born in Atlanta Baptist Hospital on this date at this time? You can, but it's going to be sort of off-putting. So you want to start this communication with your communication partner with how you would in real life. You know, and that's, if you think about how simple, keep it as simple. Yes, keep it as simple as possible. William just asked, what if the context is not immediately apparent? This context allowed to change later? That's the reason. What I hear you saying, William, is it's a fundamental problem, right? It's a reliance on always having to know the answer, right? I know it doesn't make much sense right now, but you're butting up against the old way, because the only reason that you would ask that question is if you're butting up against the old way, because structurally it answers itself if you go, okay, bottom up, because the context is immediately apparent.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
I think I wanted Michael to ask, because those were all the questions I was having, and then I was just writing it, going, I know I want to write my first note. I know I want to write Brené Brown's book, for example. I know there are some fleeting notes in there. There's going to be a lot of them that I want to turn into permanent notes. So would I start with? And then as I was thinking out that, I went, no, hang on, I don't know yet, because I haven't read it yet and I haven't written the note yet, so I don't know what's going to come out of it yet, so I can't make that first hashtag. But if that's true, then actually it doesn't matter what it is, because the next one will be relevant to that first hashtag. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, then you create a new one.
Well,
yeah.
And then the third one will define where, yeah.
It's like, it's literally like a conversation with someone. It's like you talk and you go, you know, say I'm meeting someone for the first time and I go, hey, where are you from? And I don't get a response. Okay. Hey, what do you do for work? I don't get a response. Hey, do you like baseball? Yeah, I love baseball. Okay, I'm gonna go down this thread. And it's that same, as simple as like, you can add complexity on top later, but keep it as simple as possible. And that's literally what it is. Where are you from? No, that didn't work. Does it fit underneath, where did you grow up? No, that didn't work. Hey, do you like skydiving? I love skydiving. Okay, cool. That's gonna fit right under there. Okay, well, when I'm talking about skydiving, okay, well, did you go tandem? So skydive is the top one, right? Did you go tandem or did you do solo? Solo, cool. How long did you study solo? Okay, but let me go back up to tandem. Oh, you know, you have to get training for tandem. Okay, boom. Do you see what I'm saying? It's literally a conversation.
Yeah, and it's really easy to hear you and go, yeah, of course. But then you have to translate, what does that actually look and feel like to be able to understand it? And that exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
The only way, you can theorize it, you can hypothesize it, you can break it down in your head, but until you do it, it's, you know, and that's what I'm hopefully fostering, is that community of people that are doing it with you.
Yeah. Can I jump in as well, just to?
Yes, Andy.
Literally, I think I put in the chat before, like, you need to do 20 notes and see how it feels, and then get on a call with Bo and he'll tell you to throw them all away and start again. Like, literally read all the permanent notes.
I don't think we're gonna have as much as that. I feel like I've given them enough
You would
of
know,
the...
you know before that, like, you
Yeah.
know after you've done 5 or 10 if it's not quite right. And then,
But even what I went through with you, Andy, and even what I went through with RBC3, I felt like I missed out a lot of the concepts. So I was able to integrate a lot of the things that I made RBC4 do. That I saw the weak points in how I was teaching it, and I was like, okay, well, let's buttress that with better information. And they were able to go in places. Well, have you been keeping up with the exercises, Andy?
Yep.
I think you have, right? And don't you think that it's a more like paved out path though? I really feel like it's more paved out for them.
yeah, definitely
That we won't
is.
see as much of that.
And I think
And we won't see as much.
I was trying to kind of do it, but I already knew the end result, so I don't know that I'm the best judge of it. But I do think the questions that you've asked everybody, when you actually do it, it'll be fairly obvious. But I think I'm just kind of putting it out there as like, also don't be afraid, because you can write that same permanent note in a few different ways depending on where you place it. So it's also not the end of the world when you're just starting out to go, actually, I know how to write this better next time. So take it out and put it in again somewhere else. Because if you made, once you're at like 5 or 10, you will have already started to make 1 or 2 other connections with what you've already wrote somewhere else. So maybe go, actually, maybe it fits better where I put the alternative one. I'll write it in the context of that. And maybe that has that better conversation.
Just
Thanks, Andy.
it's gonna be fun. I hope you have fun with it. You know, it's yeah.
I think a lot of it is we talked about for literally hours. It's like, on one hand, you've just got to let it go a little bit. Like, don't think you already know anything, because the whole point is to kind of pretend that you don't almost, and treat it like you're just having a conversation with someone interesting. Just turns out to be you who's the interesting person.
That's what it is. We are fascinating creatures. And I am exhausted. And we're going on for 2.5 hours. If anyone has any other questions, I think all the information is there. Now it's just a matter of doing it. And we're going to explore what that workflow looks like this week. It does feel like 10 minutes. And all I'm going to say is appreciate how much you've mastered the skill of top-down thinking and note-taking. And this is an introduction to a bottom-up approach that I'm not teaching you as much as I am reminding you of this way of working that is the same as how children learn. It's the same as, how we were learning in life. Very simple, but the benefits of it compound over time. And it's so easy to fall back on the old way and going, I'm going to structure, I already know where this note is going to go. And living in the uncertainty, the uncomfortable uncertainty of exploration and getting to know yourself. And, Tobias, it's just, listen, I don't know what this is, dude. I'm just rocking and rolling here, So again, you're not alone. It's going to be confusing. If you knew how to do this already, if you knew how to do the mechanics already, then you'd already be doing it. But it's simple as possible. I haven't found a way to break it. I didn't make anything up. I'm following what Sonke did. I'm following what the Germans did. I'm following what Nicholas Luhmann did. And just applying it in the digital realm. And so, thank you to you all. I am going to eat something, and it's an honor and a pleasure to walk through this with you. And it's like your torchbearers. you know, and I don't know whose candles you're going to ignite, or even better, relight. And I'm excited for that more than anything else. So thank you.
Thank you,
I'll have
Bo.
Thanks, Bo. Awesome.
I'll see
Thank
you
you.
all. I'm going to upload this up so you can watch it back again. Thank you again, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thanks very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.